Welcome to episode 179 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the repeat edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman, a scholar, and a angry Jacksonville Jaguars fan. His name is Josh Berry. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing great, and of course, we'll get into it later, but they've already released the top 100 rankings, and they put Trevor Lawrence egregiously low. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed in that, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, also went go-karting this past weekend again. Of course, sent some pictures to you and shared it on my social media, of course. Pictures of my go-karting exploits this past weekend in professional go-karts, really, 25 horsepower. So quite a beast there, and wore the full driver suit and everything. So never done that before, so that was a pretty nice feeling as well. So probably get into that later. But yeah, it was a great time and everything. But of course, lots of racing happened this weekend, of course, and a lot of controversy at Pocono. Some stuff happening in Iowa, and of course, Formula One. Well, a honey badger was back, so you know we were definitely licking his stamp and sending it, at least for me and maybe Dan Ricciardo. So yeah, ready to get into it.
You getting the Martin Brundle reference in there too. Quote credit on that. Yeah, I was at Pocono this past weekend, first time in 4 years getting to a race. Went with one of my good friends and my cousin and her boyfriend. So that's like three people that really have never went, essentially. So that was cool. Did a lot of walking. Got very tired at the end. After a long day, plenty of racing, got out of there just in time to not get crushed in terms of one finish. We'll talk about the trucks and XFinity. We'll also talk about Denny Hamlin winning his 50th career Cup Series race, his 6th official Pocono victory, 7th unofficial because they encumbered his victory last year or whatever the hell. In Indy cars, Josef Newgarden proves once again why he's one of the greatest short oval drivers in the history of the IndyCar series, and he's won every oval so far in 2023, tying, and in the process has tied Rick Mears, who, if there's somebody you associate with Penske racing other than Mark Donohue, it's Rick Mears, and now Josef Newgarden, who is going to be associated with Penske racing for many years to come. Goes and gets his 28th and 29th career victories in IndyCar. The Penske team was dominant there. We'll get into that. Same old in Formula One, even though Lewis Hamilton qualified on pole by 0.003 of a second. His start was definitely laissez-faire, allowed both McLarens and fish lips to go by, and that was basically it there, but we'll get into that. Busy GSP Roundup. We'll get into the NFL training camp because fantasy is starting to be talked about. NFL Top 100. The first 20 have been released as of Tuesday the 25th. We'll give you a Belgian Grand Prix preview and picks before they go on their summer break. Cup and Trucks will be at Richmond. Trucks regular season finale, and then XFinity will be racing at Road America in a what do you call a standalone. So they're gonna have modified pit stops there. Josh will talk about his go-karting exploits and more in the sim segment, and then we'll close the deal. So the Hy-Vee Iowa doubleheader took place there last weekend. Great job it was basically a Penske domination. Will Power won both poles, and Josef Newgarden won both races. So we'll get into the Hy-Vee home front 250, the Saturday race. Josef Newgarden over teammate Scott McLaughlin. Paddle Award, your podium. Marcus Ericsson and Will Power were rounded out the top five, and all the cars that were on the lead lap. basically Will Power and Josef Newgarden, they led 248 of the race's 250 laps. Alex Palou, or Dixon finished 6th, Alex Palou finished 8th, so he lost some ground there to Josef Newgarden on Saturday. He lost, 28 points on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Newgarden wins again, even more dominant performance. There were more leaders in this race, but essentially he led 212 of the race's 250 laps. Will Power led 30, and then the rest of the field 8. Newgarden over Power, Alex Palou, Felix Rosenqvist, and Scott McLaughlin, who was basically running on bricks by the end of that race. There was stuff, that second race, there was a little bit more interesting stuff that went on there, especially at the end. Scott Dixon, first car 1 lap down. Colton Herta, Malukas, Ericsson, Pato O'Ward round out your top 10. I was able to catch more or less the majority of the Sunday race. I wasn't around for the Saturday race, obviously, but I heard about Newgarden dominating. The results don't really look all that different. I mean, I guess Rosenqvist got in there, Malukas got in there, versus Kyle Kirkwood falling out and Takuma Sato not being there. So, I mean, not a lot of movement, really. It's a tough place to pass. If you miss the setup, you're not going to be in a good position there. Graham Rahal hit the wall on Saturday, finished last. And, ahead of him were the 2 Foyt cars, Stingray Robb, who would be a part of the story on Sunday. Connor Daly filling in for Simon Pagenaud. Rahal's teammates, Lundgaard, after his first win, finished 20th there, starting 19th, and Harvey from 26th to 18th. Agustin Canapino and Kyle Milot finished basically in the middle of the field. I'm trying to go. Lundgaard got a 13th place finish in the second race. In the second race, both Benjamin Peterson and Stingray Robb were disqualified. Stingray Robb, I think, because of one because of his speed, and also because of the wheel coming loose. That almost got hit by somebody. Then Benjamin Peterson got the milk and donuts black flag for being too slow. Then Canapino, I think he hit the wall and he had mechanical issues while he was running about the same place. He was right there with his teammate Callum Ilott, who ended up finishing 14th. And then, so Ryan Hunter-Reay wrecked late in the race, and then they didn't bother to put out the yellow, but they didn't open the pits. That could have affected the result, but instead they didn't. And it still affected the result because Alex Palou went into that caution running 5th. And after the yellow, Will Power in, Felix Rosenqvist into the marbles, and Scott McLaughlin's car was undrivable. So Alex Palou made up 2 spots, only lost 18 points there. So essentially lost 46 points in 2 races, but for Alex Palou, it's damage control, but to get 2 top 10 finishes at probably his weakest, at the weakest concept, Josh, in terms of short oval racing, getting a podium out of the second race, I think is consolidation when Penske basically had the field covered the whole entire weekend, whether it was speed on 1 lap or being able to run on a long run. Josef Newgarden proved once again, like I said earlier, why he's one of the masters of short ovals.
I mean, he certainly is a master of short oval racing here in IndyCar. I mean, obviously, been talking about it for a while leading up to this race about how this is Newgarden's chance to get back into the championship chase, and now he's only 80 points behind Alex Palou here. And last year, remember we talked about how he dominated Saturday, and then on Sunday he ended up crashing out, and that was probably a factor in why he didn't win the championship this year. Well, he's not as close to the championship chase this year. He's still pretty far back from Palou being 80 points back, but still this could be a catalyst here for him, and this especially the next upcoming races. We'll see how it goes, but you have to consider possibility of Josef Newgarden making a late, kind of mid-late season comeback to challenge Palou for the title. So it could be an interesting setup as we begin the final stretch of races here, going into the conclusion of the season. So Newgarden, of course, dominated this race thoroughly on Saturday, and at first it was Will Power leading a ton of laps, but then he made a mistake and ended up almost falling a lap down there at the very end to his teammate. And I think Josef Newgarden probably really wanted to put his teammate a lap down there based on how he was driving, but with the pace of Scott McLaughlin at the end coming up on him, it's really hard to risk trying to put your teammate a lap down in fifth with your other teammate coming up on you. And so it's probably best just to play conservative there, which I think he ended up he ended up doing there. So Saturday race dominant, and then the Sunday race, of course, equally as dominant. It's just an interesting setup there at throughout the race, even though Newgarden led 212 laps, his teammate led a handful in 30 laps, and at least Palou's his chances of extending his championship lead, even though he lost points to Newgarden, still came away in third on Sunday, so that's a little bit of consolation there. Rosenquist, of course, what we saw from him at Indianapolis, I think kind of goes back to what he's been able to do on ovals this year, of course. I think the rest of the top 10, of course, McLaughlin finishing fifth after finishing second on the day before. So the racing on Sunday, of course, maybe a little bit more interesting racing on Sunday, but of course Newgarden at the end still dominated. So short oval racing, I think we need more of it here in IndyCar. More than just Iowa. We can say that Gateway is a short oval, but maybe in IndyCar since it is, but we need more of this, so we'll see if other tracks like Milwaukee Mile get back onto the schedule next year or the year after or something like that, and see if they can get, Richmond might be too similar, but it was supposed to be a race a few years ago before it got canned for COVID, so possibly that, or other short ovals around the country that can handle IndyCar racing. Phoenix, get that track back on the schedule. I know in Cup it's probably not that great. IndyCar maybe not so much either, but I feel like it's a historical IndyCar track and definitely deserves to have a place on the schedule. So got to try to increase the number of races here in short ovals that definitely add to the oval flair of this series. But I said it throughout the coming weeks, Newgarden would sweep Iowa based on how he raced here last year, and came out exactly as I said it would. And he came out here, wins both races, and now has a better shot at coming back to the title fight here.
Yeah, to be down 80 points, it's nowhere. It's not like he's anywhere out of it. You think about how many races that are left to go in the season. You got 5. Yeah, you got 5 races to go. For, what is it, 3 on permanent road courses, 1 on an oval, and 1 on at home for him on a street course. The Big McKine Music City Grand Prix. We'll see if he can. He's had bad luck at Nashville in a couple of years they've been there, so let's see if he could turn that around. 120-point lead Alex Palou has on Scott Dixon. The battle for 4th in points is very close. It's only 14 points separating Marcus Ericsson in 4th, Will Power in 7th. McLaughlin and Award are tied, 329. Colton Herta, Christian Lundgaard, and Alexander Rossi round out the top 10. Kirkwood, first car out there in 11th. Rosenquist 12th. And that's basically it there. I mean, Rosenquist looking for a ride more than likely. Had a car that looked pretty sporty there late in the race. Probably lost out on an opportunity to try and make a move. I don't think it would have mattered, but he did show speed, as Josh mentioned. The oval speed is when he had the Senna or whatever, the Marlboro McLaren throwback at Indianapolis, and he had one of the fastest cars in the racetrack, and then I think he binned it in the race or to give it away, but see what happens. Only one more oval this year, so right now Penske showed a lot of power there. I don't know, no pun intended, but Ganassi has got 3 of the top 4 drivers in points. One of them is a free agent. For all the talk and everything that you're doing with Ericsson, I don't think he's going anywhere. I have a hard time believing he's going anywhere. But we'll see what happens with that. We'll start with the Cup Series at Pocono Raceway. I decided not to go, and it was a good idea. Not the least of which because it was a convention, family reunion for a good segment of the fan base there, especially by the reaction towards the winner. The highpoint.com 400, which basically was a Hendrick and Gibbs benefit, which is not shocking because that's been the whole year. Joey Logano won the first stage, but ended up getting wrecked after pitting and then being pulled around the track on the splitter and bouncing around for 2 miles, which he wasn't happy about, and spoke to Elton Sawyer about. And then I'll get into more details because he wasn't the only one that was wrecked on for either no reason or just based on stupidity. Dennis Hamlin gets his 50th career Cup Series victory, breaking his tie with, or getting into a tie with Junior Johnson and Ned Jarrett, I believe, and then breaking his tie with Tony Stewart when they're at 49 victories. I can just confirm that. Yeah, Denny Hamlin is tied with Ned Jarrett and Junior Johnson now. He was tied for 16th. Now he's tied for 13th in wins. So we'll see what happens with that. He moved Kyle Larson, basically a similar move to what he did to Ross Chastain, but it was more, I think there was definitely more intent in the Ross Chastain move because he had not bothered to clean him out. He didn't really clean him out, but he put him in a position where in his mind, he's like, well, you have 2 pedals, you can get off the gas and not hit the wall, or you go and hit the wall. In his justification, he doesn't think he hit him. I think he did, but whatever. I don't really care because I'm not a Larson guy. There was a lot of people at the racetrack that were, it seemed like. and made their thoughts known. The results of the highpoint.com 400 at Pocono, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, his driver. I really thought during the practice he had the fastest race car out there. In the end, it was Martin Truex Jr., who probably had the best race car. And then you had Kevin Harvick getting a top 5 finish, which is something. He did start 4th, so it shouldn't really be that shocking. Keebler Gibbs gets his first top 5 of his career. Christopher Bell 6th. Richard in 7th. Harrison Burton getting a top 10. Eric Jones in 9th. And William Clyde Elliott the second in 10th after starting tailback after spinning out in qualifying. Byron led the most laps in the race. Larson led the second most laps. So that was 84 of the race's 160 laps. But in the end, they don't have much to show for it. I mean, stage points and the playoff point in Larson's case, but in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't the only incident. There were plenty of people, which I'm going to get into more detail here in a few moments' time, but Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick were connected to 2 instances that took place on Sunday afternoon, Josh. But what were your... before we get into all the argy-bargy that went on all day, what did you think of the Denny Hamlin move and Kyle Larson actually showing that he has a pulse in his post-race, and the fact that Kimi Kuhn probably did a better job than most of the people in NASCAR media with the way she handled herself the whole entire day, and doing her job there for NBC?
And yeah, I agree that Kyle Larson and, well, Denny Hamlin, I think he made contact. I agree that I think he made slight contact with Kyle Larson on the finish of that race. And it wasn't as heavy as Ross Chastain last year, but it was definitely enough to get him out of the way and make him go into the wall. And it wasn't as intentional contact, of course. Denny says it was more of an arrow thing, which maybe, it might be plausible because I think if he had made more contact, I think Larson hits the wall harder. But there's been several examples over the season since then of car being on the inside trying to make a pass coming off of corner exit and having a car on the outside. Of course, Larson, Bubba at Las Vegas last year, Ross Chastain, and Noah Gragson at Kansas. Those are 2 good examples, of course. And this incident that we saw this past Sunday, and Denny took a chance, going on the bottom. He basically throttled up middle of the corner and went for it and put Larson in a position where he was vulnerable and compromised there, and led to them basically being side by side off of the corner. And then Denny had to protect his position by going all the way down to the bottom just before the apron there. And any further, and it risks really disturbing the handling of the race car, especially with how stiff and bumpy the next gen car is, and how bumpy that section of the apron is there at Pocono, where we've seen it in the past where cars could go that low and go there, but not anymore. So, it's controversial because, he's taking out Larson now. It's the second time he's taking Larson out of a finish and out of a potential win. And, Larson, has a huge fan base up in Pennsylvania, obviously doing a lot of dirt racing there and everything. So, he's very popular up there. And of course, Denny, Denny's always been kind of a smug asshole, his whole career. And, we call him Cokehead Hamlin and everything. And takes, go all the way back to 2008 when him and Brad Keselowski first got into it and everything. And, I was on Brad's side that night, and, haven't really been much of a Hamlin fan since then. I mean, I find his podcast interesting, but I feel like I don't really care about him that much as a racer. So, he always just pulls off these moves, of course. And I mean, go back to, what he did, at Charlotte. He was right that Chase Elliott, wrecked him there, but, he went and cried like a baby about it and everything. So, I don't think that's a lot of reason why I don't think Denny's that popular and everything. But he gets the people talking. But the move itself, I mean, he's trying to be more aggressive, trying to go get the 50th win, 600th win for Toyota and everything. So a lot on the line there. And the way that you have to race these days, you've got to be super aggressive. And with Larson, I mean, I thought Larson at first, when I saw it, I thought maybe he went too high into turn one, and then opened the door for Denny Hamlin to take charge on the inside, but really he maintained his line the whole time. And then Denny just tried to shoot the gap there, coming off the corner, and drifted up into Hamlin. I mean, he probably got tight. I mean, I'll buy it. He got tight, but I mean, he definitely looked like he made contact there, from what you'd see from Harvick's vantage point, and what you'd see from just the regular cameras and everything. So definitely got into him there, and that's probably what won him the race and everything. And then of course you talked about Larson showing a pulse and everything, and I mean, showed a pulse there, but I mean, it's very, very Kyle Larson like of a pulse. I mean, still fairly calm and everything, as he usually is. And now he's got a decision how to race. Seems like he's going to race Hamlin the same way that he's been raced so far this year, and we'll see if they get side by side this weekend at Richmond, or any time later, how that plays out, especially if stage points are on the line, or if a race victory is on the line, or even in the playoffs, because they'll both be there. If a championship or a elimination is on the line, how that goes. So going to definitely be an interesting storyline. And with it seems like NASCAR has had some pretty good races so far this summer since NBC has taken over. So now we have two top drivers, two big names in the series. Denny's got a lot of pull from the outside too. He's obviously with Jordan Brand and everything, and so he's got some pull there. And I mean, there's a decent amount of Hamlin fans, of course, but Larson kind of the billed as the last true racer, and popular among a lot of the dirt crowd and everything. So and obviously he's got a championship which Hamlin doesn't have. So definitely gonna be have two drivers could have a big rivalry as we heat up into the playoffs. Might be the injection into the season in terms of storylines that we need to see, and add another layer of excitement going into the NASCAR playoffs this fall.
And I figure Larson's going to save that opportunity, just like Clyde did for late in the season, to probably destroy him, whether it gets to the Final Four and he destroys him, which would be more obvious, but probably somewhere in one of them rounds, I think Larson hooks him. I mean, Bubba did it to him when he ran Bubba into the wall. Larson has had a history of hitting people and putting people in the walls, so they're both hypocrites. I mean, the vast majority of the drivers in this sport are. That's why it's like, oh, he's a whiner. They're all whiners, and they're all hypocrites, and they're all paid a lot of money. And I mean, at this point, that's I think it's part and parcel for what some of the nonsense that we saw this weekend. I mean, Tyler Reddick held his line, and Austin Dillon turned himself across the nose of the 45 car, and then Pop went and blamed the 45, and then Austin Dillon had one of the gayest throws I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he looked like Baba Booey with his helmet there.
This kid was in the College World Series.
Yeah, I get he may have been dropped on his head once or twice. I know he's Mike Dillon's kid, but for fuck's sake, that throw was god awful. I hope Ace didn't watch that because he'd wonder about what the hell his dad's doing. It was not a great day for the Dillons in general. It's not like they have many great days because they suck. Ty Dillon ran over Chase Briscoe for 28th. For whatever reason, I don't know. The justification, it seems, was to cause a caution to help his teammate, Corey LaJoie, because he was having to save fuel. And then, in turn, Corey LaJoie went and spun Ryan Preece at the end of the race, and they didn't call a yellow until they were about to head into the tunnel turn on the green-white checkered, which, Spire Motorsports, then you have the 77, they're getting Bono Mannion. I'm like, you could go and put the ghost of you could get Leonard, you could take Leonard Woody still here, you could take Dale Inman, you could have Ray Evernham and Chad Knaus, and that 77 car's still gonna suck ass. Bono ain't gonna save that piece of shit. Ty Dillon can't drive a hot nail through snow. He has no business being in a cup car. They're a pathetic organization. Fine, they're trying with one car, but they should give up the second charter. It's the same with Rick Ware. They should get rid of one charter. They got Justin Haley mainly because he doesn't have money, and Colleague, after all these years and the whole relationship, that was announced last week that Justin Haley's going to leave and go to Rick Ware of all things. But once you get into it more, it seems like he's going to be in a Roush Fenway Keselowski car sooner rather than later. He got wrecked later in the race there. Daniel Suarez got wrecked by the two guys that he's running closest with in the playoff in Michael McDowell and Darrell Walsh Jr. And that torpedoed my choice because I had actually picked Daniel Suarez as my choice for the race in terms of my one pool. So it kind of goes par for the course with the luck I've had this year. And I'm looking through some of these other people. Busch ended up. Kyle Busch, I guess, was in a no man's land. I feel like AJ Allmendinger got turned or was in something. I know those were the incidents that I can remember. I feel like there was other. Those are the three main things that I can remember. Is there anything else that comes to mind that I forgot? It was like but Blaney ended up being last car in the lead lap somehow. So
I think he dropped back, didn't he? He had engine issues.
He had 7 cylinders, and I was literally yelling that at the TV that he's down on 7 cylinders. And I don't think they went and said it outright, but yeah, he had motor problems, which is sad because he had a decent piece there at the place where he won his first career race. And I guess before we move on to Xfinity, Josh, what were your takes on some of the racing, some of the incidents that took place? I went on Twitter and I said that basically what both Ty Dillon and Corey LaJoie did, because they're helping each other out, they're causing yellows. Isn't that race manipulation? It's not. It sounds just like what Clint Boyer did years ago for Michael Waltrip. It seems pretty blatant, but would they have said anything on the radio to quantify that? And the fact that they're Spire, nobody really cares, and that they ran over 2 Stewart Haas cars, probably nobody cares either, except for fans of Chase Briscoe and fans of Ryan Preece, who've been aggrieved most of the year. But what was your take on some of those incidents that took place on Sunday, especially the one for the 2 Spire incidents, but then also Suarez and Joey Logano's deal? I still don't know who started the wreck offhand, but they were the two victims of it.
I mean, yeah, there was definitely a lot of incidents that happened here. I mean, lives up to, my nickname for Pocono, where there's an emphasis on the oh no part of it. But although that's usually when they run out of gas. But I mean, this one was kind of interesting where, I mean, Chase Briscoe just got flat out ran over by Ty Dillon, and nobody cared about it on the broadcast or anything. It just showed him getting cleaned out there. And then, I mean, Corley Joy, I think he has a little bit more respect as a racer, and that's probably more of a just over aggressiveness there. So I don't know if there's really any conspiracy, but yeah, Ty Dillon being in this race and the 77 car being so slow, yeah, I mean, they shouldn't be on the track, and there used to be, I mean, if Ben Peterson can be black flagged and put off track for being too slow, why can't they put guys like the 77 behind the wall after a certain amount of time for, not having a good minimum speed and everything? Yeah, and then I mean, that was kind of interesting there. I mean, Denny Hamlin also got into Alex Bowman as well. I mean,
I forgot about that. Yeah, and then Austin Dillon deal, and
that was with 10 to go. I think 48 got into, or the 11 got into the 48 in turn 3, so that ruined the 48 stay there. I mean, I think he was having a good run as well in the top 10. So. I mean, you ruined 2 Hendrick guys. I mean, it's not that it's a big deal or anything, but I mean, it's a big deal for Bowman because, he definitely needs help to get into the playoffs, and definitely, definitely needs a win. But these finishes are definitely not helping his efforts in at least obtaining some amount of points and everything. So doesn't help him there. I mean, Christopher Felb also spun out in the middle of it before stage 1. So I mean, you had a lot of accidents that happened today, and of course, you talked about Austin Dillon wrecking himself, and then that was just pathetic there. And I mean, it was definitely a hard hit. I mean, for him there, so definitely bad. Joey Logano and collecting Daniel Suarez, so that hurts Suarez's chances. Of course, now he falls out of the top 16 in points right now, so it's going to be tough for him, to be able to make it in on points now. It's got to be able to win, of course, and Joey Logano, unfortunate deal for him, but of course angry at the safety staff and the towing staff, I guess, because there's got to be a different way to get him to pit road and not cost him the race, after being on 4 flats and everything. So definitely there has to be a better way to get him back without losing time, and then ended up falling out of anyways after a few laps because he wasn't, I guess, he didn't meet minimum speed and everything, which is disappointing based on how winning the first stage and everything didn't help him there. So I mean, a lot of stuff happened and everything. So this race had definitely a lot more incidents than what I thought it would have. But at the end, it is tough to pass at Pocono, so that's probably a factor into some of what we saw there. So definitely a lot that happened throughout this race, and then of course the ending, the final finish, the 41 spun out. Like we talked about earlier, but of course the timing of the yellow, there's definitely probably time if they were quicker with the caution to throw that before coming to the white flag for Hamlin, but they didn't. They let it play out and they waited. Debatable on that one, but eventually they threw the caution because they definitely had to, since Ryan Preece didn't get going. So definitely questionable there somewhat, but I feel like in that sense of when to throw the caution on the last lap, NASCAR has been more consistent in a way. So I mean, this race had a lot of stuff, and it's definitely from an entertainment perspective, definitely probably one of the better races that we've had this season. And got to give credit to NBC for how they've been producing these race broadcasts, and definitely feels more professional and everything than Fox has this year. And then you also have to give credit to Pocono staff for bringing in all those fans. Of course, brought you back in, of course, on the weekend. So infield definitely looked like it was way more populated than it had been in recent years, and definitely, I mean, probably has helps that they're able to do it on only one race rather than two race weekends. But still, Pocono's definitely one of the better tracks on the circuit, and definitely a place for Northeastern fans to get their racing, get their big speedway fix in. So definitely get good credit for being able to put on a good show there. So yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff happened in this race, but it's definitely entertaining.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought up the point about the car and being hard to pass. I mean, that's been one of the issues. I thought part of them developing this car was they're trying to get rid of that aero push or aero tight, and having the wash problem would be dissipated because of the diffuser. Well, it's the same problem that they've had for years, because engineers have made it to where you can't pass. I think it was the Gen 4 car before they made the Lobsters and T-Rexes and all the whatever the hell cars that when they were still symmetrical, I think was maybe the last time where we weren't really talking about aero push because the cars were off the ground. Now they basically put them on bump stops, and they're basically stuck to the ground. I don't know why, but I've said that for years, and that's, nobody's hearing me, but it doesn't look like a regular car. I mean, I would say if you're going to make it stock looking, then get them off the fucking ground. That might make a difference in terms of the diffuser. Yeah, they won't have it sealed to the ground, but air will be going under it. It'll make that would justify getting some more horsepower, make the car harder to drive, etc. Yeah, well, you can't get into that because that's supposed to be the hardest car to drive out of all the series, but the XFinity car is. Byron right now, or Truex leads the overall points by 31 over William Byron. Byron has one more win than him. We have Denny Hamlin, I believe, is third in points there. Yeah. Christopher Bell, fourth. Ross Chastain, fifth. I'm going to go through it this way, yeah. Kyle Busch, Larson, Harvick, Blaney, Joey Logano round out the top 10. Harvick, the only non-winner amongst the top 10 drivers right now. Good battle, actually, points-wise, between Kyle Busch and Blaney, only 18 points separating those four drivers. Joey Logano lost a lot of ground on Sunday. Reddick, with his second-place finish, moved up to 11th. Brad Keselowski's 12th. Buescher, Richard, Darrell Walsh Jr., and Michael McDowell round out the 16, but in turn the top 16 in overall points. But as of and Michael McDowell actually now is in. AJ Allmendinger passed Suarez for the first car off the bump, 17 points behind. Bubba Wallace is plus 26 to the cut line. Daniel Suarez is minus 23. Keebler Gibbs with that top 5 is now minus 28. Bowman and Chase Elliott are 20th and 21st. 45 and 56 points respectively. So behind the cut line. So both of those guys definitely looking for a win. Gibbs, Suarez, Allmendinger, Mike Dell, and Bubba Wallace, all of those 5 are all right now still in the mix with 5 races to go points-wise. The Xfinity race was run pretty late in the afternoon. The Explorer, the Pocono Mountains 225, the end of what was a day that had 3 races because the ARCA race got rained out, so they ran it first thing in the morning, ran the trucks in the midday, practice and qualifying for Cup, and then you had the Xfinity race. we go through the results. I mean, here's the thing. Josh Berry led the most laps. He dominated the race, really. Allgaier had a fast race car. 2. Hemrick was up there for a little while. You had, how many leaders? 11 leaders, or 8 drivers, 11 lead changes. Bruckshot Jones led the second most laps. So the junior motorsports cars were all hooked up there at Pocono, just basically had nothing to show for it in the end, because Austin Hill was the beneficiary of yet another incident for junior motorsports. Josh Berry messing up on that green-white checkered restart also didn't help. And Hill gets his 4th win, or 6th, the 8th, so 4th win, I think, of this season, so, and he was basically in no man's land most of the day, with, I guess, alternative pit strategies and stuff. Sam Mayer saves the day in a sense for junior motorsports. Did make him and Berry did make contact, but that wasn't the contact that sent Berry into the turn 2 wall. It was probably the contact he made with Austin Hill trying to side draft him. Clyde was 3rd, Herbst 4th, Daniel Hemrick 5th. He had started 2nd. Sammy Smith, Bruckshot Jones, Brett Moffitt, Parker Kligerman, and Daniel Suarez running the 10 car rounded out the top 10. Sheldon Creed started 3rd, finished 11th. I mentioned, Chandler Smith ended up 20th. Allgaier, after wrecking in turn 1 on the final lap, finished 23rd. Berry, as I mentioned, wrecking turn 2, finished 24th. John Hunter Nemechek had solid stage points, but ended up 32nd after an incident. Him and Cole Custer were taken out in an incident in turn 1. Also, Connor Mozak was a part of it, and Parker Retzloff. And it was Josh Williams and Corey Heim. I think all those guys were involved in that one there. I'm trying to see. Was it incident 20, 00, 18, 16, 17? So Chandler Smith, 18, 16, 17. Who the hell is this? Oh, Clyde was in it. Okay. And then 7:35, 19 incident, 8:39. Oh, yes. And Ryan Sieg spun out as well, trying to avoid Berry. And Sage Karam, a home game for him. Basically start and parked a CRC brake clean Chevy 7 laps in with transmission failure. That H-pattern gearbox versus the sequential and the Cup car. Of course, he hasn't driven a Cup car, but he's used to that. Austin Hill, a beneficiary of the unfortunate luck for the junior motorsports team, but Sam Mayer goes and gets some solid points, gets himself within 8 points of Daniel Hemrick in 9th, and gives himself some more ground on the cut line too.
I mean, I think, that finish there at the end with Josh Berry, had a chance to go out and win the race and then ends up in the wall instead. So, that has to be disappointing there. And, led the most laps, started on pole, and, definitely choked away that final restart, and, went too high into turn 1 and gave it away to Austin Hill. And then next lap, he's able to get back to him and go to the inside, but he can't quite make the pass and makes inside contact. And then he tries to cut back across to get back in line to get the draft, and then makes contact with his teammate who's also right there, and then ends up in the wall after that. So disappointing end for Josh Berry's race, although he's a Stewart Haas guy now, so maybe he's just doing, he's already, doing how he probably will do in a Cup car there for Stewart Haas. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's another win that they gave up this year, so we'll see how it goes. But on the other end, Austin Hill, taking advantage of the misfortune for John Hunter Nemechek, that happened in this race, and then ended up for John Hunter finishing 32nd a lap down. So still in the lead, but now Austin Hill gains to within 13 points of the playoff point lead here. So that's the advantage there for Austin Hill. Sam Mayer, of course, ends up carrying the flag for Junior Motorsports, and honestly, I mean, if he played it right, could have been there and had a chance to finally get his first win. So although, I mean, played it probably a little bit smarter. I mean, I think if you try to shoot the gap between Hill and between Berry, you have risk of making contact with one or both of them and taking yourself out there. So maybe the smart move to let him back in line, and then end up getting second there. So yeah, good effort there for Sam Mayer. And then Chase Elliott, of course, trying to get in some extra reps to try to get him into the playoffs, or in the Cup side. Led a handful of laps there, and then end up finishing in third. So decent effort for the third Hendrick, for the Hendrick car there. And then, of course, Riley Herbst, of course, had the fuel strategy there at the end and ends up getting top 5 out of it. So, maybe could have had a better effort there, but didn't get a good push on the final restart there to have a chance and everything. And then, of course, Brandon Jones been kind of out to lunch for most of the season. Last couple of seasons at Gibbs has had at least a win or two, but this year has only had 1 top 5 and 4 top 10 finishes, and led 12 laps. So definitely better effort there for that team. And then, of course, seems like there's some rumors that they might be going to back to Gibbs next year. So that's kind of interesting with how the deal. I thought the deal was a multi-year deal with Junior Motorsports, so we'll see how that happens there. But maybe there's an exit clause or something. But hopefully you enjoyed this race. There was definitely a lot of stuff that happened. I definitely think Xfinity racing at Pocono is definitely pretty good. I think probably the ability to pass there is better than the Cup Series. Definitely the package, I think, benefits them there, and you're definitely going to see a lot more action, of course. But hopefully, you're able to see good enough things before you took off there before the end. So, definitely this race pivotal, and possibly for a handful of drivers here, and possibly maybe it sets up the final stretch here into the last bit of the regular season for the Xfinity series.
Yeah, for the majority of the race that I was there, Josh Berry was doing pretty well, so I was happy. I left with 20 to go. Got back to my car to listen to, I think, the last 2 restarts, and hear last, I think, 8 laps of the race or something, whatever the heck it was, 6-8 laps, something like that. And then I was driving out of there when Berry effed up the restart, and that was that. So I was glad I didn't stay, because I wouldn't have been very happy. And I wasn't watching qualifying, thankfully, for Cup, or else I would have been nauseated. I was saying that Briscoe's car sounded like it was on 7 cylinders. It probably is, but then the car's also a piece of shit too, so it doesn't help. So we'll see what happens with that. You mentioned Buckshot Jones. You also Riley Herbst. Herbst gains 8 points on the cut line over Parker Kligerman. He's now 26 points up on Kligerman, and Brett Moffitt minus 49. Buckshot Jones minus 54. I guess because there's a chance that John Hunter might be moving up the Cup. I don't know where he would fit, because unless they were going to go and make 3 full-time, like they were going to commit back to 3 full-time Xfinity programs instead of 2 with a third car for a bunch of different drivers. Because Sammy Smith ain't moving anywhere. He's going to be there. Don't really know what John Hunter's options would be, unless something has come up that we don't know. Mainly because of those charters and whatever, maybe having to give up charters. Maybe somebody's going to buy one like 2311 for the 67 and he'll go and get that or something. I don't know. But we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Junior Motorsports definitely has one car open, and we know one car is guaranteed to be there forever, and that's Justin Allgaier. I figure Sam Mir is also going to be there, so they could have 1 or 2 openings. So we'll see what happens with that. Truck Series race was pretty cut and dried. Honestly, the CRC Brake Clean 150. I mixed up the races that Sage Karam had CRC Brake Clean on his car, but it was the Truck Series that had the sponsorship for it. Kyle Busch gets a 64th career Truck Series victory with a last lap pass on Corey Heim in the tunnel turn. Finally watched it on replay, and it was a double juke and a dive bomb that stuck. He was talking about it on the radio. He was on the the show with Danielle Trotta and Larry McReynolds talking about KBM and all the other stuff, and he talked about the move and how he prepared it, and you see it in the replay. It made all the sense how he made a good run off of the third turn, took the outside line and won, which gave him a lot of energy and a run to do what he did. He was making moves into. He kept on showing the nose into to Corey Heim, but Heim was able to kind of get that run. But in the end, Corey Heim ends up having to hold a bag from his former car owner or truck owner. Heim finishes second. Busch gets that victory, the 100th victory for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series, so that's pretty sporty there. Heim and Taylor Gray make a Tricon second and third. Christopher Bell, driving for Hattori, finished fourth. Since the qualifying was rained out, I'm curious who failed to qualify. Chad Chastain, Doza, and Norm Benning. Okay. So I guess they had enough owner points because of his run at North Wilkesboro. Enfinger finished fifth after starting third. Ty Majeski had to go tailback along with Christian Eckes and Dean Thompson. They finished 6th, 7th, and 8th. Ben Rhodes 9th and Matt DiBurrito in 10th. Heim led the most laps. The second most laps were led by defending series champion Zane Smith, but he ended up wrecked with Stuart Friesen, Austin Hill, Kaz Gralla, Ross Chastain with less than 10 to go there. There was, the one, that's Gralla, Austin Hill, Friesen, Zane Smith, Crafton, Ross Chastain, Parker Kligerman, Carson Hocevar, Stephen Parsons was in the 02. I didn't even know that. And the 45 of Lawless Allen. Because I thought Lawless Allen was in the Xfinity race, but I guess that was the 02, so that was whatever his name is. That runs the 02 now. But, Nick Sanchez and Jake Garcia got into it in turn one. Sanchez ended up sending him, unfortunately. Tanner Gray wrecked 3 laps into the race. Unfortunate for him because his brother ended up in third and their lead driver ended up second. But in all of this, at the end of the day, Kyle Busch gets win number 100 for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Not really shocking, but he had to work for it, and he took it from the young gun, one of the favorites for the Truck Series Championship there, Josh.
I mean, it's a milestone win for that team, and they've been dominating the Truck Series for years, and this year's been a little bit different, of course, the transition from Toyota to Chevy, and the wins haven't been as automatic as they have been in the past, but for Kyle in the 51, but this one, Kyle definitely stole it from Corey Heim there, at the end. Definitely a big pass that he made. He was pretty far back on the, coming to the white flag, and even off of turn 1 there is definitely several truck lengths between those two cars, Corey Heim and Kyle Busch, and Kyle just got a huge draft off of the corner there, and sent it into turn 2 there in the tunnel turn, so and got by Corey Heim. So yeah, it was a really big move by him to do that, and then took the win away right there. And almost the way that it happened, it almost looked like Corey Heim had a problem with how fast he went by there for Kyle Busch. So yeah, milestone win for KB there, and it's 100 wins, which is pretty big for their team, and obviously they're definitely one of the most successful, not most successful team in the history of the Truck Series in terms of wins there. So definitely a lot of those because of Kyle Busch, but he's definitely had a lot of other drivers over the years that have won that, of course, are now in the Cup Series or trying to make their way into the Cup Series. Like he has several drivers in the Xfinity and even in right now in the Truck Series. So definitely proves why they're here in the Truck Series. But for the rest of that race, I mean, of course, is definitely typical truck race at Pocono, but of course, at the end, of course, big wreck there, taking out several drivers, including Zane Smith, who of course ended up on fire coming back to the pits and everything. So unfortunate for him there. Of course, led a good chunk of laps, 19 laps, and started in 6th. So Zane, of course, still has a chance in the championship here as we get ready to close out the regular season. But he's not been as consistent, as I thought he'd be. Now Corey Heim, of course, still the truck point leader now, and still has a fairly big lead on Zane Smith with 42 points between them. So it's maybe not as much of a contest with the regular season title on the line next weekend at Richmond. So we'll see how it goes there. But yeah, I mean the race itself, typical truck racing at Pocono, of course. And Chris Bell, who I picked to win, ended up finishing 4th there. So hard to go up against Kyle Busch there and everything. So yeah, I mean Corey Heim still that'll be a move for him to learn from later on, and maybe learning from that, try to defend that better if it happens to him later on. So yeah, that was definitely a good finish though. So we'll see how the rest of the season, the playoffs, how it plays out for him and how everything goes between him and probably his main championship rival in Corey Heim.
Yeah, I mean, for Heim, he has, you mentioned, that big lead outside of him having a mechanical or something at Richmond. I would venture to believe he'll get the 15 playoff point bonus for the regular season champion, and he didn't even race one race. He missed a race. So credit to him and credit to Tricon, the Gilliland Gray racing team, DGR, whatever team last year. I mean, Zane Smith's up there. He'll be second. Enfinger, Rhodes, and Majeski are all tied. Same amount of points with one race to go. Ekis has 2 wins. Majeski's in. There's really no way he's going to fall out. Hocevar has 2 wins. The race now is really Di Burrito, Nick Sanchez, Matt Crafton, and Stuart Friesen. Crafton and Friesen only separated by 9 points. Stuff could happen for Di Burrito or Sanchez to get knocked out if somebody from outside of the top 10 that isn't, or it isn't Matt Crafton or Stuart Friesen, so Tanner Gray on wins, then the bump line moves 1 below, and that would basically end the season for Matt Crafton. He's been on the cusp. They made crew chief changes and all that, but we'll see what happens if we'll stay with the point standings as they are, or if something wild will happen this weekend at Richmond. Formula One Hungarian Grand Prix, try to keep this short and sweet. Fish Lips ended up winning the race. It was a lot of hopes for Lewis Hamilton after getting a historic pole, beating Verstappen by 0.003 of a second, and but Verstappen got off the line like a rocket, and so did both of the McLarens. McLaren, and for whatever reason, decided to pit Oscar Piastri second instead of first, even though he was in second. Basically screwed his entire race there. Verstappen, Norris, Perez, the podium. Lewis Hamilton, 4th. Oscar Piastri, 5th. George Russell, 6th. The Ferraris of Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, 7th and 8th. And then the Astons of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, 9th and 10th. Fernando Alonso last car in the lead lap. Alexander Albon was close to possibly getting another point for Williams. Daniel Ricciardo, in his return to Formula One, finishes 13th in the AlphaTauri. And the Alpines ended up having dual DNFs in the first corner after an incident initially caused by Joe, because he had basically was DOA on the start, so had hesitation or stalled or whatever. Then I'm trying to think. Yeah, him and Valtteri Bottas had issues on that start as well. I'm trying to remember who, which one of them started the wreck really going into turn 1. Gasly ended up hitting Ocon and splitting it. Ocon ended up flying over and breaking his seat. That was so yet another double DNF for Alpine. They didn't even make it 2 laps. Nightmare scenario. Logan Sargent ended up having mechanical of some sort and finished 18th, still chasing that elusive point. And yeah, I mean, the race behind Fish Lips was somewhat interesting. 6 seconds or less than 6 seconds separating Norris, Perez, Hamilton. Norris then went and smashed Max Verstappen's trophy, which was funny. But then because they're butt buddies, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, McLaren has made a big strides, Josh. And with rain coming at Spa more than likely this weekend, could be a rewind to a couple of years ago when Lando Norris was on the cusp of winning pole and would have won the race if he had done that. But it's same old there in the front, at least at the top of the list.
I mean, the Max Verstappen, of course, not a surprise, but I mean, at least for me, I felt like definitely a surprise that Lewis Hamilton actually won the pole there, and gave me at least a little bit of false hope for a minute that maybe Lewis would least hold on to the lead for a bit. But of course, at the start, just wasn't able to hold on to the lead. And of course, Max got a way better start than he did and is able to take the lead into turn one. But Lewis ended up finishing fourth there. So Lewis, of course, they still have a little bit of work to do. And maybe for him, Lewis starting up front, again, kind of it's been a while, so maybe he's a little bit rusty there, being able to fight the leaders and everything. So thought it would be interesting there, but not really. And then of course McLaren continuing to build on their improvement, Lando finishing second, getting podium, and then Piastri finishing in third. So yeah, that's definitely a good result for them there, beginning to turn it around. And yeah, I mean, like you said, could be interesting here at Spa this weekend if weather gets in the way, and maybe they pull out a surprise win or something like that. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, the other big story, of course, in this race, Daniel Ricciardo coming back, under Red Bull with AlphaTauri, and of course, I mean, those cars aren't really fast, but outpaced his teammate there the whole weekend and was a lot more competitive than that car has been in quite a while. So already, I mean, even though it's probably about as good as it's going to get for AlphaTauri finishing outside the points, definitely a good result there for his first race back in several months for Ricciardo, and definitely under a team that seems like understands him more than what McLaren did. So it looks like he's definitely maybe could be on the right track. We'll see. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I mean, still same old story up front.
Yep, and get into the points. 110-point lead for Fish Lips over his teammate. Sergio Perez is 32 points ahead of Fernando Alonso and 38 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So Hamilton trying to get to third in the Drivers' Championship didn't seem possible earlier in the season, but Aston Martin has fallen back. George Russell is in fifth in a battle basically with the two Ferrari drivers at the moment. 3 points ahead of Sainz, 10 points ahead of Leclerc, but Lando Norris is rising after a couple of second place finishes now. He is only 30 points out of fifth, and it seems like there's a possibility he could move up further. Oscar Piastri has been left wanting the last couple of races. I think he will get in the top 10 and stay there more than likely once he gets there, because that car is so good. In terms of the constructors, don't really have to worry about. We already know who's going to win the Constructors' Championship. They're 230 points ahead, basically. 229 ahead. And then Mercedes is 39 points ahead of Aston Martin. Aston Martin is 17 points out of Ferrari. So that's they would talk about second, third, fourth. And then there's a huge gap between Ferrari and McLaren, who's right now in their own world, 40 points out of Alpine, who is 36 points out of Williams and Haas. Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri, nothing changed amongst those four teams points-wise. Their last 5 teams to be in the Constructors, but they'll be going to Spa this coming weekend. Alrighty then. Let's get into Formula 2 and Formula 3 at Hungary. We try to go pre-season. Oh, so they'll be racing this week at Castellet. Yeah, that's right. Formula 2 and Formula 3. I went, and so we'll start with Formula 3 and the results from from Budapest, Gabriel Mini wins the sprint race, and Zach O'Sullivan wins the feature. Get into the sprint race. Mini over Gabriel Bortoleto and Bedrin, Paul Aaron and Goth. Mansell, Colapinto, Edgar, Saucy, and Boganovic round out the top 10. Kalen Frederick was 12th. Sophia Flörsch actually finished 15th. Wow. And Pepe Marti was 20th. So brutal. Zach O'Sullivan 22nd. Kyle Collette buried. Then in the feature race, Zach O'Sullivan over Boganovic and Colapinto. Goth, Paul Aaron round out top 5. Pepe Marti 6th. Bortoleto, Edgar, Fornaroli, and Boya round out the top 10. The points with now 4 total races to go, 2 rounds, because Spa is the next to last round of the championship. They aren't making up the Imola round, so they haven't put in something in its place for whatever reason. Bortoleto is 43 points ahead of Zach O'Sullivan and 44 ahead of Pepe Marti, and 50 ahead of Paul Aaron and Daniel Boganovic, and 51 on Franco Colapinto. So it's a very close battle from 2nd to 6th. 8 points between those guys, and you have Gabriel Mini just kind of hiding over there as well. So we'll see what happens with Formula 3. In Formula 2, the results there from their race at Budapest, Dennis Hauger, the sprint race winner, and Jack Doohan, the feature winner. Dennis Hauger over Iwasa and Oliver Bierman, Teo Pocher, Jan Daruvula, Kush Miney, so Indian drivers 5th and 6th. Victor Martins, Isaac Hadjar, Frederick Vesti, Jack Doohan. Jack Crawford was 14th. Brad Benavides was 18th. Juan Manuel Correa was dead last. And in the feature race, Jack Doohan over Frederick Vesti, Victor Martins, Iwasa, Isaac Hadjar, Pocher, Hauger, Enzo Fittipaldi. Correa gets a point, or 2 points there in 9th. Richard Vashore rounds out the top 10. Jan Daruvula just outside of the points. They're trying to go through. So Jack Crawford was 17th, Benavides 18th, and Kush Miney was 20th. Standings getting into, they still have 4 rounds to go. They'll run Spa, then they'll be at Zandvoort, Monza, and then they'll take 2 months off or 3, whatever. Yeah, basically from September. So yeah, they're basically taking 3 months off before they go to Yas Marina to end the season. Yeah, Brad Benavides is one of the only ones that hasn't scored a point so far this year. Vesti is 11 points ahead of Teo Pocher, 21 points ahead of Iwasa. Victor Martins, Jack Doohan round out the top 5. Oliver Bierman in 6th. Jack Crawford right now is 13th. Kush Miney and Jan Daruvula are only separated by a point there. So we'll see what happens with those guys as we move forward. In the World Rally Championship, it was Kawi Rovanpera basically dominated the whole entire rally, won a shit ton of stages, and put a stamp on that whole deal in going and trying to go and win that race. He racked up his 10th victory of his career. And our answer, led the rally league, fast road. He was having to sweep the road on Friday, still won 15 out of 21 stages, 13 consecutive stage wins. And, so, I mean, that was a big result for him. Gives him and he won by 52.6 seconds over Thierry Neuville. Esa-Pekka Lappi was third, so Hyundai gets 2 cars on the podium. 3 in the top 5 with Teemu Suninen was in 5th. Efren Evans for Toyota was 4th. Tanak had a 5-minute penalty for an engine change, and now they're looking at how they manage that within the points or within racing. Starting the race with a 5-minute penalty, they probably are going to have to change that because it killed Tanak's whole entire weekend when it's his home race. He had a chance. He could have done something with that race. I mean, he was only a minute 20. He only lost a minute 25. So he probably would have finished 4th or something otherwise. So that's disappointing. Estonia won't even be around on the championship next year. So that's something there. The points right now, Kalle Rovanperä trying to get a second consecutive world championship is 55 points ahead of Efren Evans, 58 points ahead of Thierry Neuville, and 66 points ahead of Tanak. So they basically lost out on a great opportunity there at Estonia. The Indy NXT at Iowa Speedway. And bring that up we got the schedule, we got the results there. So Indy NXT at Iowa Speedway saw Christian Rasmussen lead 74 of the race's 75 laps. Jacob Abel, who started on pole, led the first lap. Rasmussen, Matt Brabham in a substitute role. Hunter McElroy finished 5th. Everybody else, sans Nolan Siegel and Kiffin Simpson, who wrecked, were they in separate incidents. All the other drivers pitted that were still in the race. You got Ernie Francis Jr. in 8th. Jamie Chadwick gets a top 10. Jagger Jones in 11th. The points going into Nashville, Christian Rasmussen continues to lead the points right now. 281, 22 points out of Nolan Siegel. Jacob Abel is 10 points ahead of Louis Foster, and 3 points out of Hunter McElroy. So that's a close battle between those 3 guys. Reese Skoll, Daniel Frost, James Rowe, Kiffin Simpson, and Ernie Francis Jr. now in the 10th position. Rasmus Lind, it's somewhat close. Jagger Jones, Rasmus Lind, Enam Ahmed, Christian Bogle, Matteo Nannini. 8 points separating those drivers. Jamie Chadwick moves up to 16th in the points, only 7 points out of the top 15. So we'll see how she does at Nashville. In the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, they ran at Lime Rock this past weekend for a GT only weekend there, and the results saw in the FCP Euro Northeast Grand Prix, saw Alex Riberas and Ross Gunn win overall for the Harder Racing Aston Martin team. Started on pole and ended up first. Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnicoat for Vassar Sullivan Lexus started second, finished second. Klaus Bachler, Patrick Pile from 5th, finished 3rd. At the Pfaff Motorsports Plaid Porsche, the Corvette Racing team, Jordan Taylor, Antonio Garcia finished 4th overall after starting in 3rd. Marco Sorensen, Roman DeAngelis for Harder Racing in the GTD category finished 5th overall and won their class over Julian Andlauer and Alec Udell. The Kelly Moss Porsche, Trent Hinman and Alan Brygolfson in the Wright Motorsports. Brygolfson, I probably jacked that name up, whatever. Finished 3rd. Catherine Legg, Sheena Monk in the Gradient Racing JG Wentworth Acura finished 10th in overall and 6th in class. Trying to go through every car was running there. The Jared Andretti, Gabby Chavez, Aston Martin had issues along with Alan Metney and Kayvan Burlow in the race. Frederick Shandoff, Brendan Rebe in the Inception, McLaren, all those drivers had issues along the day there. The next race will be at Road America, newly repaved Road America, which the Indy cars were at. That'll be next week at Road America for their IMSA Sports Car weekend. NHRA, part of the Western Swing, the second leg of the Western Swing. We had Steve Torrance win in Top Fuel, Tim Wilkerson in Funny Car, Gage Herrera in Pro Stock Motorcycle, and then so Steve Torrance ends up beating Doug Coletta in the final there in Funny Car. J.R. Todd, or Wilkerson gets J.R. Todd in the final there. Pro Stock Motorcycle, who's had Gage Herrera beats his teammate, Eddie Krawick, for yet another win. And then in Top Alcohol Dragster, I'm going to check the ladder just out of curiosity. Jackie Frick beat Joey Severance. Pro Stock, they don't show that qualifying order. I don't want to go and see if, so they'll show Top Alcohol Dragster. So Tony didn't even run. That's interesting. Frick, Madison, Payne, Kim Parker. So three women in the top 4. Joey Severance was 5th and got to the final there. So that's interesting. In Top Fuel, you just go back in there. Torrance ended up beating Josh Hart, Brittany Force, Sean Langdon on his way to the final. Doug Coletta took out Ron Smith, had a bye in the second round. Doug Coletta, he didn't beat himself. He did beat himself in the final. Clay Milliken, Redlit badly. And then again, finally, he got beat by Torrance. In the Funny Cars, Wilkerson gets another win there. Goes and beats Matt Hagan, Ron Cap, so the top 2 guys in points. Blake Alexander on his way to the victory. J.R. Todd beat Alex Laughlin, Cruz Pentragon, and Chad Green to get to the final there. And Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera from, I don't know why they showed, okay. The Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera ran low ET of the race. They said low ET, but then that's 672. That's lower than what they're showing there. Okay. Gage Herrera beat a red lighting Lance Bonham, got a bye in the second, beats Hector Arana, even though he was behind on the starting line by 300ths or 3,000ths of a second, or 003, and then gets to the final. Eddie Krawick goes and beats Ryan Ayler, Chase Van Zandt. Matt Smith had a mechanical issue in the semifinal. Standings heading to Snoroma. Steve Torrance 4 points ahead of Justin Ashley. Leah Pruitt, Brittany Force, Austin Prock, Doug Coletta. That's like a 50-ish point gap between those drivers. Antron Brown, Mike Salinas, Josh Hart, Clay Millican rounding out the top 10. Millican has got a 24-point lead on Sean Langdon. Basically, as I mentioned, as long as you run the majority of qualifying sessions and show up to every event, you'll make the playoffs. So that's going to be 12 drivers. Matt Hagan, 17 points out of Ron Capps. 10 points separating DeJoria, Height, and Green. Wilkerson with the win moves up to tie for 6th with Bob Tasca, who got dismissed in the first round. John Force, J.R. Todd, Bruce Pentragon has got a 61-point lead on Blake Alexander, and then you have more on Alex Laughlin there. And just to give, they'll be back this weekend at Sonoma Pro Stock. Dallas Glen's 202 points ahead of Matt Hartford, 204 ahead of Troy Coughlin Jr. And go on from there. Camry Caruso, 8th, just behind her teammate, Greg Anderson, 6 points behind her teammate. And then in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera has a 266-point lead on Hector Rana Jr. Eddie Krawick is 3rd. Matt Smith tied with his wife for 4th and 5th. Steve Johnson in 6th. Chase Van Zandt, Gianna Evaristo, Ingwerson, Klontz, 2 points ahead of Ryan Ayler in Pro Stock Motorcycle for the bump. Supercars will be back at Eastern Creek this week, and there's been news, just Supercar, yeah, there you go, that Simona Di Silvestro will be making a return for a wild card for Dick Johnson Racing for the Bathurst 1000. She used to be a full-time driver in the Supercars Championship, driving for the Kelly Racing Nissan team. Kai Allen will be her teammate, Super 2 driver in right now for Eggleston Motorsports. So that'll be interesting to see that combination and how that all works out. They had trying to see what other more news. Yeah, Mustangs are now gonna have an adjusted throttle body. They went from 87 millimeter to 80 millimeter, which is the same as a Camaro. Hoping for better response and to save rear tires. They've had issues with that the whole entire year. So we'll see if that helps their chances, because they've been destroyed by the Chevy teams the whole entire year. Will Brown, 7 points out of Brody Kostecki. Brock Feeney is 26 points out in 3rd. Shane Van Gisbergen in 4th. Chaz Mostert, the leading Ford driver, in 5th, only 7 points out of Andre Heimgartner. Cam Waters 7th. And as they go to Sydney for the Sydney Super Night race there at it says New South Wales. I'm trying. Oh yeah, so that's it's Eastern. Yeah, it is Eastern Creek. There you go. They used to run the MotoGP opener way back when, and other races there. So that'll be cool to see. World Superbike in the Czech Republic. There's been some news in World Superbike, but one thing's for sure, that Alvaro Bautista will be the World Superbike champion again. And so he's got a massive lead, but if Toprak Raskat-Lioku can go and keep it somewhat interesting, you never know. The results right now, Bautista trying to break the all-time record for wins in a season. 70 points out of Toprak Raskat-Lioku. Andrea Locatelli is 7 points ahead of Johnny Ray. And Axel Bassani rounds out the top Michael Rinaldi has been dropped for next year from the factory Ducati team, amongst other changes. Raskadlioku is going to BMW, and et cetera, et cetera. Garrett Gerloff, 14th in points, 5 points behind Iker Lackawanna, and 11 behind Scott Redding, who's on a factory BMW, and Remy Gardner, I think, was at 13 points back, so for 11th. As I mentioned, F1 Academy, briefly there, the standings heading into Paul Ricard. Marta Garcia is leading Hamda Al-Khabaisi by 36 points. Lena Buhler is 43 points back. Abby Pulling is in 4th. Marty 5th. And Bianca Bustamante, last driver as of now, has over 100 points. So they'll have this race, the 3 rounds at Paul Ricard, and then they'll be taking a couple months off before they return for the final race weekend at Austin during the U.S. Grand Prix weekend for Formula One. In terms of Formula E, they're coming to the end of their 2023 season, and the point standings going into the London doubleheader. British driver Jake Dennis trying to win the Formula E World Championship for Avalanche Andretti and Porsche Power Unit is 24 points ahead of Nick Cassidy. Mitch Evans is 44 points back. Pascal Wehrlein 49. That's basically it. You'd need a miracle. I think the maximum amount of points you can make in a race is 29 in one race. So I think it's 58 points could be made up. So those are really the 4 guys I would consider, really Jake Dennis and Nick Cassidy, the 2 that could possibly go out there and win the championship. Envision Racing has a 14-point lead on the Porsche factory team. Jaguar factory team is 11 points behind the Jaguar TCS from Tag Heuer Porsche. And then 21 points back of second is Avalanche Andretti, DS Penske. So those are the 4 teams up there for the team's title. We'll talk about all that next week on the GSP. All right, so I'll open the floor to you, Josh. I've been waiting patiently to discuss the egregious ranking of Trevor Lawrence, the second, now going into his 3rd year of his career, made his first playoff appearance last year, made an enormous comeback against Chargers that you were in person for. Your brother wasn't happy about it, but you definitely were. It was definitely a crazy game. Trevor Lawrence going and getting that victory, Doug Peterson and company. But first year in the top 100, I don't think it'll be his last. And he's 96th out of the top 100. But you aren't happy about it.
Yeah, definitely not happy about that, because I think Trevor Lawrence is better than number 96 in the top 100 players. And I mean, contextually, when you look at it, they put Tua ahead of him and they put Justin Fields ahead of him. And I think, yeah, that's extremely egregious there, because I think Trevor, statistically, I think he performed better than Justin Fields in just about every major category that actually matters in the NFL in terms of QB play. And then I think he definitely performed better as a QB than Tua Tagovailoa. So yeah, I think that's definitely underselling him there as a player. I mean, it's a player ranked list, so I'd really like to know like what they were thinking there. Or they just going off of pure highlights? Is it because, I mean, you know, Tua has Tyreek Hill behind him, or, you know, alongside him, that maybe inflates his plays look like, because he's a human highlight reel, and Tyreek Hill, you know, Justin Fields, you know, has made a lot of you know, moves on the field with his mobility and everything, but he still took a lot of sacks, and, you know, he had 8 rushing TDs and 1,000 yards. But I mean, let's look at, you know, from a QB perspective, I don't understand how, you know, Trevor is ranked below them. I mean, and then, you know, also I told you, you know, earlier before we started, you know, back in 2016, the top 100 players of 2016, Blake Bortles was ranked number 56, and he had 4,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 18 picks. So, and, you know, a lot of those were in garbage time when they were playing behind. I mean, he had a few wins there where he came from behind, but, you know, that year the Jags were 5-11, and you know, back then, I mean, it's like, oh, it was pretty good, or, you know, I thought he was going to be pretty good, but you know, it was like, well, we got to clean up the mistakes, and, you know, those never got cleaned up, and, you know, of course, Blake is retired now and everything, but, you know, Trevor Lawrence in one season, you know, if you compare that, his second season, and back then, 2015, Blake Bortles' second season, I mean, Trevor's done way better, and you know, he proved he was the franchise, you know, took the team from a 2-6 record where, you know, a lot of that was somewhat because of him making mistakes, and then he cleaned up his game by, you know, country mile and led them to the playoffs, and, you know, had the comeback win against the Raiders, had comeback win against the Baltimore Ravens, the Cowboys, comeback win against they defeated Tennessee in Tennessee. You know, they defeated them at home to win the playoffs. Then, of course, the playoff victory against the Chargers, you know, coming back from 27-0 and 4 picks and everything, and putting the entire team on your back. I mean, I don't understand how that's, you know, I mean, that should be higher than 96. I mean, I feel like you should at least be in the 50s, let's say. We'll say the 50s. I mean, I feel like that's probably reasonable. You know, so yeah, that's what I think. I mean, I don't understand that. So yeah, that's what I'm, I guess, as a fan, you know, incensed about theirs. So, but of course, you know, I think, you know, he'll be ranked higher next season, more than likely, and everything. And you know, 96, you know, through 80, or 100 through 80 in the NFL players list, I feel like it's for those guys that are, you know, on the edge of being great, right? And they haven't yet proved themselves, or they're good enough to be on the list. And I feel like Trevor, you know, he's already proved himself and everything, so I feel like that's egregiously low. And I mean, they're really selling the Jaguar stock low, so I guess buy high, so when they come up on the rise and go, you know, raise their price, I mean, we'll all be rich, I guess. But you know, I mean, it's interesting. And I mean, freaking Dalvin Cook, who's a free agent right now, and I mean, he's not even on a team, and he did drop 60 spots on this list. I mean, he's number 91, so yeah, I don't understand that and everything. So yeah, I'm a little incensed on that. Now I'm curious to see you know, which players, if there are any other Jaguars players on there. I mean, I think there's got to be at least a few. I mean, I think Christian Kirk, definitely. I'll be curious to see if they put Calvin Ridley on that list after, you know, being suspended for a full season, if he's deserving to be on that list. And we'll see if anybody on defense makes that list, you know. So you know, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's definitely kind of yeah, definitely a massive underselling, I think, of you know, how he performed based on, you know, when he went from 21, the dumpster fire with Urban Meyer, to, you know, thriving under, you know, Doug Peterson's offense.
Yeah, and it's just the start of what many believe will be a very long career, and hopefully one that Shad and Nick Khan brings a lot of people to the seats in Jacksonville, and continues that franchise brings it back to some of the glory years of the late 90s with Tom Coughlin, and then et cetera, et cetera. There's been times on and off for the Jags, but Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. We'll see what happens as this season goes on. I mean, 3 Miami Dolphins, Wilkins, Tagovailoa, Armstead, Zadarius Smith from Minnesota to Cleveland this year. Then Laramie Tunsil, Justin Fields, Chris Lindstrom, a guard for Atlanta, Aiden Hutchinson, Marshawn Lattimore, DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, as Josh mentioned, in 91st. Marlon Humphrey, Eric Kendricks, who's now in LA Chargers, Terry McLaurin, Jamal Williams, who went from Detroit to New Orleans, Trevor Lawrence, the aforementioned, Harrison Smith from Minnesota, Tristan Wirfs from Tampa Bay, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Devontae Smith. Those are the ones that have been announced so far. Other news, Saquon Barkley signed a 1-year deal for $11 million or so. So he'll be a free agent next year. Justin Herbert agreed to a 5-year, $262.5 million extension with the Chargers. It sounds like they have extra incentives and pieces where you'd be staying for longer. The news has come out that Brock Purdy has been cleared to practice. So for everybody talking about the 49ers quarterback room and who's going to be the starter, well, a lot of that drama has theoretically been removed now because Brock Purdy's going to be practicing, albeit not every day, but he'll be involved at the start of training camp here. But it doesn't mean there won't be a fight for the backup role, whether that's going to be Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. And there's definitely people in both camps for who would be that next guy. And with the Niners' great history with injuries, they might keep both of them, to be fair, and they probably would be smart if they did. On the flip side, a guy who's definitely going to be on the top 100 list, Nick Bosa, is waiting on a new contract, getting a contract extension, one of the best defensive players, period. One of the best pass rushers, et cetera, waiting on a new contract before he comes in. So that's really the news there. Mention the top 100. Brought up, so then also Jimmy Graham signed back with New Orleans, so good for him. Trayvon Diggs, 5-year, $97 million extension, the cornerback for the Cowboys. So so that's news. Jonathan Taylor has been put on the physically unable to perform list, and that's not good news for people who have him, that's for sure. We have him on our dynasty team. Myself and Vic. And then there's an issue. Kadarius Toney had a knee injury, so they're doing a knee scope and clean up cartilage on his knee. So that's one of the weapons for Kermit the Frog. Trying to go through that. Brock Purdy, so that's where we're at with football. We'll definitely get into it more and more as we go on, as the weeks go on, prior to the season opening. All right, Formula One Belgian Grand Prix. We both are going to pick Fish Lips. I'm not allowed to call him that in the grid talk, but since I'm not allowed to say that in the chats or all that, I'm going to call him. I'm going to double and triple down on it here because it's my show. It's our show. Fish Lips, trying to go back. I had the first pick, so Josh, you can start with the Belgian Grand Prix picks.
I'm gonna go actually just repeat. So you can just copy and paste this from what we did last week. So Fish Lips, Checo, Lando. That's what I'm gonna go with for this week. I actually think that could happen. I really actually am kind of high on Lando Norris right now and McLaren, but I am actually kind of curious now why you're not allowed to say Fish Lips anymore. That's kind of funny.
Well, they think it was something about they have the bylaws within whatever and posting, and I think it's because it's in reference to person's appearance and not insulting a person's appearance. But and I get that, and I mean when you're talking about a vapid, empty cocksucker who is a terrible winner. And his team are the worst winners that exist in motorsports. I'm not going to stop calling him Fish Lips, and I'll call him. I won't reference his name. I'll call him the current world champion. I'll call him whatever, but I'm not going to say his name like that. I refuse. Generally, in terms of me, I said Fish Lips, Lando Norris. I picked to finish second. And in third, I forget who I picked on Grid Talk off the top of my head. I think I said Lewis, but I'm gonna go crazy here. I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna say Ferrari actually gets out of their own way, and Charles Leclerc rounds out the podium. Kind of out there, but we'll see what happens with that. The Cup and trucks will be at Richmond, Xfinity at Road America. I want to save. I think. Well, we should. I guess we can do trucks here. All right. So Cup, trucks. I can't spell at Richmond and Xfinity at Road America. So we'll start with the Truck Series, the regular season finale. Yes, in the end of July is a regular season finale for the Truck Series with the amazing schedule that they have. The Worldwide Express 250 at Richmond, no entry list because for whatever reason. It is on Racing Reference, okay, because it is a NASCAR-based site, so they own the site, so it makes sense. That's the entry list. Okay. All right, thanks for that. So 38 for 36 spots right now. Both Reum trucks don't have a driver. They don't even have a crew chief listed. The 20 for Young's is got no driver, and the 22 with Kevin Sawinski's team doesn't have a driver. William Sawalich, Will Rogers, and the 02. Sawalich driving the 1. Trying to go through some of these here. Trey Hutchins making limited appearances. Boyd in the 12. Brian Vargas back in the 30 this weekend. Bailey Curry in the 41 for Nice. Jerry Bowman, whoever the hell he is, will be in the 46. Matt Mills in the 51. That'll be a caution. Timmy Hill in the 56. Connor Jones in the 66. Justin Carroll in the 90. Those are the ones that are either limited starts or not usually around. In terms of, do I think anybody is going to win out and get in from the current situation? The only person that I think that could do that, I mean, the reality is Friesen's only 9 points out. I look at who is out there that I think possibly could go and pull one out of his ass and get that victory. And to me, it's Jake Garcia. But that's what I feel could actually, if there's somebody that I think could actually go and win and get in. Do I think that really is going to happen, though? No. I think we're going to have the status quo. Crafton ends up beating Friesen into the top 10 in points and makes yet another playoff appearance. Truck Series, so Phil, and we'll, in terms of a winner on Friday night, who am I choosing? I'm going to pick, this is for the regular season title, of course. For Corey Haim's probably going to get that and get those bonus points. I'm going to go Grant Enfinger. I'm going to go a little bit out off the path. He hasn't shown a lot, but he's uber consistent. This is around the time that he started switching it on last year. He's a noted short track racer. Driver that I would say is a wild card person. Trying to see. You got 21. So I think in terms of a wild card, I'll just go with it. I said Jake Garcia, so I'll stay with it. So Jake Garcia is my wild card. So and I say here, so Grant Enfinger to win. Grant Enfinger to win trucks, and Jake Garcia wild card. How about you, Josh?
For me, it's hard not to go with the regulars. I'm going to say that Corey Haim comes out and wins this race and takes home the regular season title. In terms of wild card, I'm going to go, let's see. Let's go with Taylor Gray here and see if, he did well last week at Pocono, so let's see what he can do this weekend. And everything. He's actually been somewhat decent in short tracks. At Martinsville, finished in 8th place, so let's see if he can get a top 10 at the other Virginia short track.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. He needs a win to get in. He missed a few races to start the year before he turned 18, so he needs a win to get in. And if he does get in, he's been looking kind of sporty here recently. If he can do that. The Henry 180 at Road America, they're going to have modified pit stops this weekend because they're on a standalone race. Blaine Perkins continues in the 0-2 as in the Weatherman pool. The 0-7 doesn't have anybody listed as of now. Alex Lebay in the 0-8. AJ Allmendinger is going to be doing double duty this weekend. Just curious. Going from there and then flying back to Richmond. So I don't know how the logistics are with that. Because he has to practice and qualify the car at 12 something, and I don't know what time the Xfinity race starts. Connor Mozak will be in the 19. Sage Karam driving for Sam Hunt. And Stanton Barrett running the 35 for Emily Gase. Joe Graff in the 38 for RSS. We got Brad Perez going to be back in the 44 for Alpha Prime. Leland Honeyman in the 45. Right now, nobody listed for either the 53 for Emily Gase or the 66 for Carl Long's team. Balicki, who's solid road racer. It's home game for him in the 91. And Kyle Sieg in the 28. So I get first choice, and I'll go and pick AJ Allmendinger because that's just why wouldn't I pick him? AJ Allmendinger, he's to win Xfinity because he's the all-time winner in the Xfinity series on road courses. And he just likes these cars, and he's just really good there. I mean, he won in a champ car back, 17 years ago. He's really good at this racetrack. It's one of his best racetracks, period. The wild card, that's a little bit more of a tough choice there. I'm trying to see here. You got 23, so 22, 23. Because they've missed a couple of races, huh? Say the top 12. My wild card for this weekend will be Kaz Gralla. No, he's been a pretty decent road racer. Sam Hunt's bringing good vehicles to the racetrack to get that Joe Gibbs support. Wouldn't be surprising to see Kaz Gralla have a good run there at Road America. What say you, Josh?
I'm going to go with Sheldon Creed finally getting his first career win in the Xfinity Series. Arguably should have won at Portland, then ended up, kind of having some misfortune there. He's had a pretty decent road racing record, I feel like. So yeah, I feel like he can definitely do a good job there and potentially win there. And I think wild card. Let's see. There's a lot that can go here, but I will go with Sage Karam here in the Sam Hunt car. I think he was running good here last year before that deal with Noah Gragson. So he's definitely a guy that can probably run top 15 at least, potentially top 10 here in Road America.
Yeah, this is probably one of his best opportunities to show something. Teammate to Kaz Gralla this weekend. They've had speed at times in that 24 car. They had speed, a couple weeks ago in New Hampshire, and then Gralla got junked by Ryan Sieg because of a brake failure. And I think they were using the car they're going to be using this weekend at Road America to finish out the race weekend there. The Cookout 400 at Richmond International Raceway, or Richmond Raceway now. Another track that I've attended races at over the years. Chastain, his usual sponsor. Jack Links with Menards on the 2 for Cindric. Bass Pro Shops Club for Bald Spot. Dylan Ream will be on Kevin Harvick's car. Brad Keselowski builds Submarines. Corey LaJoie, Fraternal Order of Eagles. Kyle Busch with X World Wallet, whatever that is. UniFirst uniforms for Chase Elliott. Mavis will be back on the 11 for Denny Hamlin. Body armor for Ryan Blaney. Rush Truck Centers for Chase Briscoe. Yaley will probably run that same whatever sponsor he's been on, had on that car for the last few weeks. Nothing for Allmendinger. Busher back with Fastenal. Mac Tools for Christopher Bell. Harrison Burton back with Dex Imaging. McDonald's car for Bubba. Liberty University for Byron. Leaf Filter for Justin Haley. Stagefront.VIP for Michael McDowell. Speedy Cash for Todd Gilliland. The usual sponsors for Legacy. XFinity 10G Network for Tyler Reddick. CleanX for O. Richard. No Neck will be back running. He's running SRX on Thursday night. And I forgot about the points, but whatever. I'll get back to it next week. He's running the Parts Plus Biohaven 51. Dylan yet again will have Ty Dillon will have Gainbridge. And then the jockey car will be Daniel Suarez. Josh, you get the first choice there in terms of Richmond and who you think will win and who is a wild card contender.
I'm gonna go with Young Money. I think he can sweep the season here. Kyle Larson at Richmond Raceway, and he definitely is due for a win here. After having not won in actually quite a bit. So interestingly enough, he hasn't really been. Kind of a short track guy if you think about dirt racing, but he performed pretty well at the spring. So I think they can come back here in the end of the summer and bring a win and kind of get their season back on track. Wild card, I don't know. It's tough, but I will go with I will go with Chase Briscoe. Why not? We'll take him. You took him last week, so I'll take him. That's out there, but let's see. 12th at Richmond in the spring, so not bad. So there's potential there. If things go his way. So they have been well, but hey, flat tracks. Phoenix is a flat track. They finished 7th there. Martinsville finished 5th. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I hope you're right. They need a decent run. They've had one good run in the last 2.5 months, and that was New Hampshire. Of course, another flat track. So the short track program for Stewart Haas is good. It's just basically everywhere else where they suck, with every car outside of Kevin Harvick, which is probably the saving grace for Josh Berry because he's going to the 4 car. He's not going to the other 3 pieces of shit that Stewart Haas puts out there on a weekly basis. For me, Truex was trying to win at one of his many home tracks. Get that at Pocono. He wasn't able to. I'm going to say he goes and wins at Richmond, though, this weekend. Or did I pick him? I didn't pick him, or I did pick him last week. Okay, you know what? I'll throw an audible, and I'll call an audible, and I'll say Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell, I'll pick to win the Christopher Bell to win Cup. He's a good short track racer. He's solid, and they've been on and off here. They're 4th in points overall. They're definitely giving up a lot of playoff points right now. So this is a time to start kind of mining and doing what they have to do to prop up their playoff point situation. This is an opportunity race for that at Richmond. My wild card pick for this weekend. Bowman has won there before. I'm not sure about Elliott. I'm going to go with Based on absolutely, well, it's just I'm gonna go with Suarez because he's gonna be motivated to make up for last weekend, finishing dead last tailback in an incident not of his own doing, and get himself back into the 16 that would make up the playoff grid in the Cup Series this year. And so that's that for the previews and picks. Josh, let us know about your go-karting exploits and what's going on in the world of sim racing, iRacing and all.
Of course, I mean, I showed you what I was doing last Sunday at Bushnell Motorsports Park down in South Florida, down kind of like an hour south of Ocala off of I-75. So I drove out there, and it was raining on the way there. It was raining when I got there. Got there about an hour early, and then kind of chilled out in Starbucks for a bit and watched a bit of the race there on my laptop, and then went in there, and it was still, the rain had let up mostly, but it was still pretty damp and everything. And I talked to the event guy, Paul Lopez of Track Sports, talked to him if we were still good, and said, hey, we're still good, and said, hey, you came all the way out here from Melbourne and everything to come out and do this. So it was being able to do that, and it was a bit wet, so started out on the 15 horsepower go-karts, and that was pretty tough, because at first, like, trying to figure out how to get started, have to figure out how to get the ignition going, stalled out. I spun out and stalled out once on my first lap out there, and had to be pushed back to the pits, and then I had to figure out how to start it up again, and quickly learned how to start up the if I stalled out, you just hold the starter and give it some gas, and it'll go and everything, and then try to just go in the rain, trying to find a good line in the wet. Spun out a couple of times. It was definitely treacherous out there, trying to lay the power down. Coming out of the corner, you try to start laying the power, and then you start to feel the cart lose traction, counter steer to to the right or to the left, depending on which corner you're coming out of. But it was definitely treacherous. And then at Bushnell, there's a bridge on part of the course, and you go up there, and definitely kind of sketchy going up there in the wet. So definitely had to be careful there, especially going downhill, where you can lose traction and everything. So yeah, definitely interesting being able to do that. And then afterwards, the 15 horsepower karts, after I did one session, decided to try out the 25s, and that was definitely an experience there. It was tough trying to get that one around there. Spun out. I mean, I thought I had it. It was like, oh, this is way more powerful. I think I can handle this and everything. But honestly, like, I probably wasn't really ready for it, to be honest. Still probably should have tried to gain more confidence in the 15 horsepower ones. But I tried to go to the bigger motor one, and definitely learned a lot, and tried to send it into one of the corners coming out of a banked corner. So at Bushnell, there's a bank corner there where you can really, if you can hold it, you can really make up a lot of time through there on the bank corner. But I had to let out of the gas a little bit, and then try to get a little bit more into the next hairpin, and spun out and went right into the mud. So got Paul's kart there dirty a little bit. So, and I got myself dirty a little bit. So that was kind of interesting there, and I was wet for a little bit. But yeah, then later on, in the 25s, he told me I need to try to slow down a little bit more and to calm down a little bit. I think you could tell by my inputs that I was definitely probably a little bit anxious in the 25 horsepower ones. So, trying to lay the power down. It's really hard to get into the power band on the straights. There, I feel like maybe I think if you're skilled enough, you'll be okay. But for trying to just learn and everything, where really you don't want to like go wide open until you're straight. You don't really get into the power band by the time you're into the braking zone for the next corner and everything. And then, of course, I had issues with locking up the brakes. Those carts, the brakes are super sensitive, and I think I was probably applying too much brakes there. So trying to go in hot and then put in a lot of brake and then spin out and everything. So gotta work on that and everything. So still need some progress there. And then as the night went on, actually went back into the 15 to try to get some more consistency there instead of going around the track half throttling it, putzing it around the 25s and back to the 15 to try to get back some confidence and everything, which was I was fine with. I felt like I'd try to be more it's all about trying to get comfortable and everything. So went into back into the 15 and they also went and tried a different layout there. Instead of going around the full course, there's kind of cut the race there, the track there, you can do different layouts, and he just changed up the layout, moved some cones around and everything, and then went out in the 15s and went out for the rest of the night and tried to get comfortable in there. So was able in the 15s, was kind of able to hold it wide open through the bank corner into the hairpin there. So definitely felt better in the 15s, but still got a lot of progress I feel like I need to make up. The last session we went back to the full course layout, and I feel like probably could have gained more on, honestly. I think because maybe the fact that it was wet at the beginning on the full course, and then not really having a lot of time on the full course, and then also it was the full course layout that I've ran before this track and the rental carts there, but this was actually the reverse layout, so it was a little bit different. So still trying to get a hang of the reverse layout and everything. So I probably needed maybe a couple more sessions on the reverse layout and in the drier conditions to really understand how the layout is, and then also get a better feel for the kart and everything. Still had a little bit of issues with spinning out and everything, so still got to work on that. But I felt like I spun out less as the night went on, so starting to get more comfortable. Now it's all about trying to put it all together. So I definitely got a lot to work on in the pro style karts. The rental karts, which I've obviously been doing periodically this year, definitely feel all right in those. Pretty good actually. I feel obviously was pretty good enough on July 1st to for this guy to was watching, and Paul gave me an invite to go to his event on Sunday, so obviously it was good enough there in the rentals and everything, and I'm definitely comfortable in that. So those were only 9 horsepower, and these 15 and 25s definitely different animal, and definitely ones that you'd actually go out and race in competition. So that's definitely a big difference there. Never done anything like this before. This is first time and everything. So glad to be able to do it. Thanks to Track Sports, and glad to meet all the guys there that were racing, and meet some of the guys that they own their own karts, and definitely got to talk a little bit with some of the guys. I think one of the guys there that was at the session, I think he's at Sebring, he said, and I think he said he actually did. I guess like he was in the pits with the BMW team with Ray Hall there, so that was actually pretty interesting to hear that, and hear what they were talking about working in the pits with those prototypes and everything. So that's pretty cool, and also just the experience everything, treating it more like a real race environment rather than just you pay $100 and go out and race on. I mean, they're fairly high performance rental carts, but definitely a step below the race condition carts, pro level carts that I was racing in on Sunday. Or I mean, we weren't really racing. I mean, it was still pretty treacherous. So I mean, but definitely a race like environment there. So yeah, definitely a fun time. Hopefully I'll be able to do it soon. Obviously we'll find out more information later on next month or following month on when the next events are. In the meantime, probably do more sim work on the karting side. I know there's a couple of, I mean, there's no kart in iRacing, but I mean there are other games that do karting that I've done before, so I might have to start doing more of that to try to get used to or get more consistent with the steering and braking inputs and everything. So we'll see how that goes. And I think at Orlando Kart Center they do a pro level kart rental there that is similar to the 15 horsepower ones, I believe. But it's like $100 for 20 minutes. But if I got to do it, I'll go and do it. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that opportunity again. Definitely, it was a whole lot of fun, and honestly glad I'm able to do it. Kind of culmination of everything that I've done racing wise, I guess, in my life, and all that stuff. And especially this year, I had a few work friends that talked about doing go-karting throughout this year, and we were able to do that. And then ultimately the last time we went led to this, so glad for all of that and being able to experience motorsports and everything. We talk about motorsports, we talk about sim racing deal, but being able to get a taste, however small that is or however big that is, of the real thing, definitely something that is definitely very enjoyable and definitely very fun. So definitely glad to be able to do that and everything. So yeah, definitely looking forward to being able to do that again, and everything. So sim racing wise, yeah, I mean not a whole lot there. I mean, obviously I did do Pocono once on the Cup side, and then on the Xfinity side. The Xfinity side was in the top 10 on the final restart, and then got loose off of turn 1 and went right into the wall. So wrecked myself out there on the final restart in Xfinity, and then Cup got taken out on the final restart. Somebody drifted up and hooked me in the left rear, and then I hooked somebody else in the right rear, and then we both spun out of the race, so wrecked out. So yeah, didn't really go too well there on Pocono, but Pocono is definitely still one of the favorite tracks in sim racing. This week, I mean, obviously Cup is at Richmond. However, you got the 87s at Homestead, Miami, the ARC cars at Auto Club Speedway, so that's always fun. The Gen 4 Cup cars at North Wilkesboro, so that should be really interesting. And then got IndyCar, Dallara IndyCar at Talladega, the Toyota GR86 at Long Beach Street Circuit. And then road racing wise, you got the Formula Ford at Rudskugen Motor Center, and then you've got the MX-5, the global Mazda MX-5s at Okayama Circuit. So yeah, it should be interesting this week, iRacing. And then one other thing that I saw is there's this new hot lap competition, I guess, on their Racing Prodigy that I saw, so I signed up for that. And it's a Formula Ford hot lap competition this week at through August 6th at Okayama Circuit. So go on there, and I think it's basically like who can perform the fastest lap on there, and then it kind of narrows it down to a competition in the following weeks, and then eventually actually leads to opportunity to test out a real race car in Atlanta. I think at Road Atlanta or Atlanta International Raceway or something like that. I think that's where it is. I have to look at that again, but another opportunity to go real racing and everything. Don't know if to actually make it up into that. You have to obviously be really good, but definitely worth a try just to put your name in the hat and at least give it a shot. So that's what I'll try to focus on this week and everything. So yeah, that's that's it for sim racing this week. Well, always, as always, if I stream, which maybe I might stream later on the week, Twitch TV/usailor2, go on there, follow the streams, and follow my sim racing and see how I approach racing from a driving tactics, I guess, standpoint and everything. And then of course Twitter's at JP Huffine. Go out there and see all my stuff and see what I'm interested in. Probably post the pictures on there as well from go-karting. Post that on my Facebook, but probably post the karting pics on Twitter as well. Definitely retweeting the sentiment from the Jacksonville Jaguars of Lawrence being disrespected by the rest of the league. So yeah, definitely feel that sentiment there, of course. So yeah, definitely see all the stuff that I have and opinions shared or agreed with and otherwise. So go on there and follow. Then of course our YouTube channel at Groupstrip Podcast on YouTube. Go on there and see our latest episodes and see all the clips that we have on there and everything that we've done from last spring of 2022 up until now. So go on there and see our videos and all our episodes on there and listen or watch if you so desire to. So yeah, go on there and follow us and subscribe and like our channel. So yeah, as always, glad to be able to share about motorsports and everything. Glad to be able to talk about it and be able to discuss all the things that happened and everything. So yeah, we had a lot to talk about tonight. So yeah, very glad to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's always great to do it. We've done it for nearly 180 episodes. So glad that we've been able to do this and do it together and keep on going with it. We're going to keep on doing this for a long while, because it's a passion project for both of us. You'll go and see Josh's work. I mean, he handles the back end here during the show, but he also handles the Gripster Podcast YouTube page, posting our video feeds there. You can find our show basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can get the Gripster Podcast. You can philipgmatthew.com is a good way to go. That's my blog site. Get some hits on there. You can see the episodes when they're uploaded. You can find me at pgmatthew28 on X, Twitter, whatever the fuck it's supposed to be called. It's not really a great platform anymore, but I'm pgmatthew28. We're at Gripstrip Pod on here as well. I'm Philip G. Matthew 28 on Instagram, and yeah, that's about it. We'll be back next week for episode 180 of the Gripstrip Podcast to cover Richmond, Road America, Formula One at Belgium before their last race before their summer break. And then Indy cars at Nashville, et cetera, whatever else is going on in the world of motorsports. We'll talk about it here on the GSP. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time on the Gripstrip Podcast.